And I get a phone call now. Hello? Yeah. So a few weeks ago, I uploaded a video called Hard Quizzin, Part 1. This is Hard Quizzin Part 2. Now in this little mini video series I'm doing, I'm going through isidewith.com's political quiz. And the political quiz is based around the general election in the UK that's happening on June the 8th. Basically, there's a bunch of topics on there, a load of different questions, and however you answer those questions will generate a party that aligns mostly with your beliefs. In part 1 of this little series, I went through the first half of the questions, and part 2 is now going to be the second half of the questions, plus the long-awaited reveal of what party that quiz thinks I should vote for. So if you haven't watched that video, go back, watch it, I'll wait, I have friends, don't worry. Okay, you caught up now? Right, let's crack on. So I left that video on the domestic policy issues. So now we're moving on to the next section in the quiz, which is education issues. So the first question in that section: should the UK abolish university tuition fees? Now this is interesting because since I last filmed that video, Labour have come out and said that they are going to abolish tuition fees entirely. I think it was a leaked manifesto. But yeah, so it's very interesting, so this is quite topical. And I answered no, but they should be reduced, and I thought this was more important. Remember, there's the importance scale on these questions. So why did I say that? Why exactly do I think that university fees shouldn't be abolished? Now, having been through university myself, you would have thought that I would be all for going for it for free. But you have to remember that universities are businesses, really. They have lecturers to pay, they have campuses to maintain, and they have higher education to fund. So I don't think university fees should be completely abolished, because then where does the funding come from? It becomes government funded, like schools. I mean, how good are schools? Having more money flowing through the university system makes that higher education better, makes the equipment good. I went from a school environment, a sixth form school environment, to something that was super high tech in my eyes, and now it's even better. And that's really why I don't think you should lose the funding. And tuition fees is like the core of that funding. You lose that, you lose the quality of the universities, and that's especially important that that's not lost. I do agree that it shouldn't be that expensive though. £9,000 a year is abhorrent at the best of times. I was one of those lucky bastards that only had to pay £3,000 a year. I literally dodged that thing by a year. So I was quite fortunate in that one. But now these poor assholes are paying £27,000 just in tuition fees alone, before any other expenses. My maintenance loans and all the other costs of being at uni don't even come close to just their tuition fees. And education shouldn't have a barrier to comprehend like that. I know that amount of money does put a lot of people off, and if I was going to university now, knowing that I'd come out of it with nearly £40,000 worth of debt, I would seriously reconsider what I was going to do. Okay, next question. Would you support the return of a selective education system and the reintroduction of grammar schools? I went yes on this one, and I said it was less important. Grammar schools are quite an old thing in the UK. They got phased out a while ago, but now there's talk of them coming back into the education system. So grammar schools are basically high schools that offer a higher level of education to select pupils. And it's only offered up to people who pass something called the 11 plus test. Basically, it's school for smart kids, and you've got to go through an exam to get in. And I've got no problem with this in the slightest. I think the opportunity for people to go to a school that offers a better education should be available. It should be there. You know, I think it's up to the children and ultimately the parents of the children if they want to kind of encourage their kid to get a higher academic standing. There's nothing wrong with that. I kind of get this whole equal opportunities thing, and no student should be treated differently. But at the same time, I think it's complete nonsense. Nobody is equal. Nobody is born equal. If you are born intelligent, why should you not be given the opportunity to thrive on that intelligence? And to push people out of that idea in the name of political correctness is complete bollocks. Complete bollocks. If you think that this selective education system isn't a good idea, then you might as well abolish universities. Because that's what universities are. They're an opportunity for people of a higher intelligence to further themselves in terms of education. That's exactly what this is about. Alright, moving on. Quickly, I'm running out of it. So, should every student be required to take GCSEs at the end of year 11? Yes, you fucking idiots. Well, yeah, because it will be pointless going to school. I know that vocational alternative does get brought into this conversation, but I do think GCSEs provide a good foundation of education that is important and is valuable throughout every aspect of your life. I think you should take GCSEs. Learn a trade after. Get the foundation at the age of 16. That's young enough, don't worry, mate. You've got plenty of time to learn what you want to do after the age of 16. Yeah, some things are nonsense, but at the same time, that groundwork is what a lot of higher education institutions require of people. Okay, moving on to another section. This is electoral issues. And the first question in this section is, should the minimum voting age be lowered? No, definitely not. So you have to be 18 to vote in this country, and I think that's fine. You know, I genuinely wouldn't trust anybody who hasn't had a pint or had to deal with nightclub politics to have a say in how this country is run. I mean, I think being an adult to make what is ostensibly an adult decision is fine. 18 is fine. But I'm sorry, I cannot conceivably put the fate of this country in the hands of a child. Alright, moving swiftly on, because that was easy. Should the UK switch to a proportional representation voting system? I went no on this one, and I went less important. So basically what happened in America with the last election is a great example of this. So Donald Trump won the presidential election based on the electoral colleges, which is in a roundabout way the kind of thing that we have here with the constituencies. He won the electoral vote, but the popular vote, which would be the proportional representational one, went to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton got more percentage of the votes across the country, but as per electoral college, Donald Trump won. It's basically the same system here. As a constituency, you vote for a representative of the constituency to be your man in parliament, or woman in parliament, or gender neutral in parliament, whatever. In the last general election here in 2015, I think UKIP got quite a substantial percentage of the votes, but because that percentage of the votes was spread sporadically across the constituencies, it ended up them only getting one seat. If this voting system was in place, then hung parliaments would be a lot more regular than they are now. It would mean there is less stability and no majority government in the House. It would have to come to a kind of coalition government most of the time, because the percentages would be way off, and it's not this first past the post system that it currently is. Personally, it's a complicated issue, and I'm not really that bothered by it. I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't see how going to the proportional thing would fix anything. But again, I'm not a political expert. I'm just going off what I read in a couple of articles. And without testing the other one, we can't know what will happen, and we can't truly test the effects. So, yeah, I don't know. Just stick with it. Let's not get... It's Friday. Let's not get too complicated with this. Should foreigners currently residing in the United Kingdom have the right to vote? I went no on this one, and I went less important. It's a UK election and should be voted upon by British citizens. That makes sense in my head. I mean, if you're here long enough to have become a British citizen, then okay, that's fine. That's no problem. But if you're here, if you immigrated here and you're living here as another nationality, I don't see how you should have a say in how this country is ran when you're not a national of it. Having other nationalities voting on how our country is ran just doesn't hold water in my eyes. Citizen or not, basically. I don't care if you're from India originally. I don't care about that. I don't care if you're from another country originally. As long as you're a British citizen, have at it. Vote all you want. Next section is criminal issues. And should convicted criminals have the right to vote? I went no on this one, and it's pretty straightforward, really. You've committed a crime, you've proven that you cannot function in our society and obey by society's laws, therefore you can no longer be a functioning member of that society. Simple, really. There's nothing else to say about it. Just don't be a dickhead. Don't be a dickhead, and you can maintain all your rights. The minute you commit a crime, see you later. Jesus, I genuinely thought that I hadn't been recording that then. That was terrifying. Should non-violent prisoners be released from jail in order to reduce overcrowding? I went no on this one, and I think it's least important. Mainly because I think this question's kind of vague. What constitutes as a non-violent prisoner is problematic. Some non-violent prisoners get released from jail? Yeah, maybe. But it's too loose. It bunches too many people in one category. It has people who download child pornography, which is a non-violent crime. It leads to violence, maybe, but the crime itself of downloading child pornography is not violent. With drug users, maybe someone who smoked a bit of weed, had too much weed on them. Two very different circumstances. And they come under this non-violent offender category. So what would you rather have? Would you rather have someone walking the streets who has fueled the child pornography industry, or someone who smoked a bit of dope at the wrong time? Because they both come under this question. So considering just the way that this question is posed, I have to say no. Alright, next, foreign policy issues. Do you agree with the UK's Brexit decision to withdraw from the EU? And I went no on this one, but I think it's less important. Now. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the decision. that happened in the EU referendum. I did vote Remain. I wanted to remain a part of the EU. And really, my vote wasn't because I thought that was the best choice economically, socially, or anything like that. I voted that way in a sort of protest of what that kind of referendum became. It wasn't a lay out all the facts on the line to the British public and find out what would be the best course of action here. You know, it got muddied. It got fogged by this nonsense from the media, this spooling of propaganda, these two sides, both the Remain and the Leave campaigns, just flinging shit at each other like a bunch of fucking animals. And in the end, we didn't really get to see what any of the facts of the situation would be. We didn't get to see what predicted outcomes would happen. There was no studies done. There was nothing like that. It became football hooligans just slinging shit at each other. Like, how the hell did anybody take sides in this thing? Like, there was genuine, like, the campaigns on both sides. This isn't just the Leave here, even though I voted Remain. This isn't just Leave. This is Remain as well. They were campaigning to win, not because they thought it was in the interest of the British public, but because they wanted to prove their power as politicians. And it was nonsense. It pissed me off beyond belief, because we didn't really get to see what the ramifications of it will be. And we still don't now, because the media and the politicians are still doing the same old shit all the time. So yeah, I went no on this one. And I did vote Remain, purely out of the fact that I thought, you know what, if this decision isn't going to be taken seriously, then maybe we should just leave it as it is for now. You know, it functioned. It may not have been perfect, but it functioned. I think the conversation wasn't had. It was never given the opportunity, and I disagree with the result because of that. Because I think some of the tactics used by the Leave campaign did in turn create that result. It was a campaign of fear and propaganda, and of fear the man that isn't British, fear the EU. That they preyed upon that. They preyed upon that because a lot of people in this country believe that, because they're patriotic, and I can admire that to an extent. Anyway, let's move on before I get too carried away. Next question is, should the UK abolish the Human Rights Act? I went no on this one, and I think it's most important. So the Human Rights Act is a pledge to follow the Human Rights Bill put in place by the EU. So I see why people would want to abolish the Human Rights Act, because it's technically EU rights. It's not British rights. But at the same time, everyone on this planet is a human, you fucking idiot. So to have a Human Rights Act in place would be a good idea. And I know it's kind of this case of Britain wants to sever all ties with the EU, and this is one of those ties to the EU. I think in time maybe we could develop our own human rights bill and, you know, adopt that rather than something that the EU put in place. But right now, as the Brexit is happening, I think this is one of those cases where it might just be a good idea to leave it alone for now, just stick with it. Again, it works, there's no issue. There are some more pressing things here to address, so maybe do that first and then move on to this. But don't abolish it, keep it in place. Next question, should every 18-year-old citizen be required to provide at least 1 year of military service? I went no on this one, I went most important, and mainly because this isn't North Korea or the mid-20th century. I like to think we are a society past that point now, and not over-reliant on military bravado. I don't think we need to do anything like that, so no, don't be fucking stupid. Definitely no. Okay, next section is transportation. Should the National Railway be privatised? I said yes on this one, and I think it's least important. It's already privatised. The trains that run on the lines are already owned by private firms and private companies like Virgin or London Midland. These are businesses. Is there an issue there? Yes, certainly. I've seen it firsthand, like train delays and problems on the line. Something is not right there. Undoubtedly, it's not right. But at the same time, do I think the government could fix that problem? No, not in the slightest. A government takeover, I don't think, would fix that issue. I think the solution comes in the hands of the companies, really. Just look at how stretched the NHS is. You know, where's the government going to pull that money from? At least private firms have their own private accounts, which they can kind of figure out. And I genuinely have more confidence in a firm like Virgin being able to pull a U-turn on this situation and figure out how to get the railways to run more efficiently. Should the London Underground be considered an essential service which would ban all future worker strikes? I said no, and I went least important on this one. No, any public transportation you use is not a service, it is a privilege. And you have earned that privilege, be it through your lifestyle or your job choices, and you are able to afford to use public transportation. It's like any other product out there. You buy into it, you expect a service, I give you that, and you can complain to the company if that service isn't provided. Most of the time, they'll refund you. But no, it shouldn't be a service. Just don't be such an entitled prick. Yeah? Do you support the construction of high-speed railway, otherwise known as HS2, connecting London to Birmingham? No, and I think this is most important. So this project is going to cost the government £56 billion from start to end. That is the projected cost of this. And that £56 billion price tag cuts the journey from London to Birmingham by 32 minutes. Yeah, 32 minutes. That's how much shorter that journey will be for £56 billion. And yes, this money is coming from the government. The lines that are being built are government funded. Every line in the UK, every railway line in the UK is government funded. And I'm sorry, but I just don't see how £56 million is a good use of money for 32 minutes. Just be patient, arsehole. Just be patient. 32 minutes isn't a long time. Do you know what that works out at? If I've got this right, that works out at 1.75 billion per minute. Stupid. Bad news. I'm out of beer. 2 more sections though, so not long. Okay, immigration issues. Should the UK deport immigrants who are considered to be promoting terrorism? I answered no on this question, mainly because I don't think kicking out the criminals, because I think these are criminals. I mean, yeah, you can dress them up as terrorists, but they are criminals, and I think they should have to answer to the crimes or potential crimes that they're going to commit in the country that they were going to commit them. You know, we've got to punish these guys. We've got to punish them in the way that we would punish anybody else in our society. We can't put terrorists up on that pedestal. I said this in the previous video. It gives them more power, it gives them more control because they are above society. And that's not how this should go. We should not treat terrorists any different from your common criminal. If you do that, you give them that kind of martyrdom for what they're doing, when really treating them as us and as equals will probably harm their cause more than the current way that we are dealing with them. Okay, next question. Should there be a temporary ban on all immigration into the United Kingdom? I went no on this one, and to what end is this going to achieve anything? Immigration is important and it is an integral cog to our society in the UK. Every industry in the UK is rife with foreign talent, from doctors in the NHS to video game developers. Being an accepting multicultural society is beneficial to us, not just socially, but also economically. I see where some concern is in regards to illegal immigration and the potential threat of terrorism from overseas. And I will admit that some tighter control is needed in those areas. But one thing I do not subscribe to is this kind of patriotic racism that this question is kind of encouraging. You know, that kind of keep them out of my country attitude. This is Great Britain. We don't want Polish people over here. Many times before, I've heard people say, those Polish wankers stealing our jobs. I grew up with that. And I'm sorry, but who said this country was yours, mate? And I'm not talking to the Polish here, I'm talking to the British man. The UK citizen like myself. Who said this country was mine? What right do I have to this country? None. Guess what? The reason I'm British is because I was accidentally born here. I just happen to be British. I just happen to be born on this specific spit of land. So yeah, I don't think we should keep other people out of our country just because they're from a different country. I don't think the security threat is high enough. I think the security threat is made worse by the media. Definitely made worse by the media. Because news doesn't report good news. I said this before, this is something that Bill Hicks said. I said this before, there is no good news channel. Everything you see on the news is bad because that is enticing. That is what we want to see. We want to see things that speak to us in that kind of shock horror kind of way. We want the awe. We want that shock and awe. But then the good news never gets highlighted. It's always the bad things. It's always the bad things about immigration. When really they're the minority. They are the vocal minority. The majority of immigrants and the majority of foreign people in the UK are fine. They're absolutely fine. It's like terrorism. It's like Islamic State terrorism. The majority of Muslim people, they're sound. They're absolutely sound. Every single one of them is fine. But you'll get that one dickhead in a million that wants to blow himself up. And that taints the whole bunch. Blanket treating people just because of something that seems to be a misconceived perception. It's tough. And it's tough to convince people otherwise. Next section, science issues. I love a bit of science, me. Should the government require children to be vaccinated for preventable diseases? Yes. Do not be a dickhead. Come on. You're not a scientist. You're not a doctor. You're an idiot parent who spent too much time on Facebook. You need to not listen to that nonsense. Don't be a retard. Just don't. Like, if you don't vaccinate your children, you're a fucking idiot. You're irresponsible. You're an irresponsible parent if you think that a vaccination is going to harm your child. Do you support the use of nuclear energy? Yes, I do. Both nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. So nuclear fission is the current power source in nuclear power plants. It kicks out less pollutants than coal-fed power stations or gas-fed power stations. Sure, the risk of radioactive waste is an issue, but that can be dealt with cleanly and pretty much effectively. I don't think the after product of nuclear fission has ever been an issue in terms of containment. The problem is when these power stations go wrong, they go fucking wrong. Like, you get like what happened at Chernobyl and what happened at Fukushima in Japan. If there is a nuclear reactor meltdown, that area is ruined, completely ruined for a long time. But I think the safety of them is underrated. There are plenty of nuclear power stations dotted around the world that function fine and have been functioning fine for a long time. The risk isn't as high as it seems. Again, it's what I said last time, good news isn't really news. You're not going to report on a nuclear power station that functions fine. You're going to report on the one that blows up. So nuclear fusion, the other one, I'm in total agreement with this one. This one's fascinating. So nuclear fusion needs a real boost in terms of funding that research from the government. Nuclear fusion essentially is harnessing the chemical reactions that are happening in the sun. Not the newspaper, the big fucking light bulb in the sky, you dick. And figuring out how to do that on Earth is extremely complex, but we're getting very, very close to it. And if we do that, if we could basically harness the power of a miniature sun, right here, if we had a miniature sun right here, it would completely resolve the entire energy issues across the entire globe. Sorted. Don't worry, mate, you're going to have power forever. And it's completely clean as well. So, that's it. That's it. We're done. We're done with these questions. Jesus. So, that's all the questions done. I'm out of beer. Now I'm going to reveal what exactly the results I got were. So after all those questions, all those answers, here's what I got. I side with Sinn Féin on most political issues of the 2017 election. Yep, the Northern Irish Party. 66% to Sinn Féin. After that, I got 65% on Liberal Democrats and 64% on the SNP. So, I need to move to Northern Ireland or to Scotland very quickly. Out of the top 3 parties that I aligned with the most, and the top one in fact, and the third one, so Sinn Féin and SNP, they don't even run in my constituency. So my only other option is Mr. Tim Farron, the Liberal Democrat, nobody that I didn't even know existed until a few weeks ago. So yeah. So out of all the parties that I aligned with most, I don't know what I'd choose. I still don't. I don't think I would vote. I don't know if I would vote Lib Dem. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to treat this election. The results of this quiz really raised more questions than answers for me. Sinn Féin, Liberal Democrat, Scottish National Party, the Welsh one because I can't say it, and then the Green Party. They're my top 5. And then below that's Mr. Corbyn. I don't know. So, there's my answer. There's the big reveal. I should vote for I can't vote. I can't even vote for that party. I literally can't vote for that party. So that's it. That's Hard Quizzing Part 2. I have finished the quiz. I'm done with this for now. No doubt there will be more political content from me in the future. We're getting very close to June the 8th now. And God, that's an awkward clash with E3. Whew. Expect more political rants in the weeks to come. I'm not shying away from that at all. I enjoyed doing this quiz. I think I said this before, and I'll say it again because I think it's important. I think the questions this quiz raises is more important than the end result, especially for me. It gets you thinking, it gets your mind ticking over on these subjects that I think shouldn't be shied away from. You shouldn't be shied away from being challenged. I think it's important to be challenged, especially when it comes to politics and having a say in how your country should be ran. Like, this is us, this is our responsibility, our country is up to us. We have this idea that the government is above us, but it's not. It's a part of us, it's a part of our society. Parliament isn't a kind of celebrity phase. It's not a section of celebrity. It's a section of people, normal people like me and you, and we have to challenge those people. We can't be afraid of them. Here's a task for you. I'm going to do this if this happens, but if you get one of those, what are they called? Cold callers. If you get one of those cold callers knocking on your door, challenge them. Be it Labour, Conservative, Green Party, Lib Dem, whatever. If one of those MPs come round and they want to talk to you, rather than slamming the door in their face or just, letting what they say just sink into your head, challenge them. Talk to them. Ask them questions. Get them nervous. Remember that they are people just like you, and they are representing your MP. Challenge them. Challenge everything, please. Right. Thank you. Follow me on Twitter. Subscribe, like, whatever. And I'm done. I'm done. Man, I need another beer.